I think you would like to know that that piece was written for Bernardizzo by Betty Jacobson, who was for 43 years organist here and is now artist in residence, written for Bernie as he finishes his 43rd year singing for us here at Kenilworth Union Church. So we appreciate the gifts of these friends and the many years they have given to us. Oh, the depths of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable are his judgment, how inscrutable his ways. For who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor, or who has given a gift to him to receive a gift in return? For from him and through him and in him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen. Let us bow for a moment. The world is too much with us, getting and spending. We lay waste our powers. So grant us in these moments some distance from that world, so that we may be available to another, thy world and thy word, which is our life. In the Spirit of Jesus, amen. Dr. William Birch tells how his 3-year-old daughter, Caitlin, became theologian in residence at his house. He writes, on a quick walk across the yard, Caitlin suddenly halted all progress by dropping down next to our azalea bush and asking me, "What's that, Daddy?" "A bumblebee," I replied, and tried to move on, but Caitlin was not ready to move on. "What bumblebee do?" she inquired earnestly. Forced into joining her on the ground, I examined the fuzzy creature buzzing from bloom to bloom, and just for a few miraculous minutes, adulthood's selective vision was banished to be replaced by a child's all-encompassing insight. Through my daughter's eyes, I truly saw a bumblebee for the first time in many years. My adult destination was forgotten during a moment of grace as we knelt together and thanked God, as it were, for the wonder of the bumblebee. And I thank God secretly for children who enable their parents to experience the wide-eyed wonder of childhood once again. I think we've all seen it. The infant, in its first few months, seems to be all eyes. It is as if the infant's eyes are eagerly, hungrily receptive, famished for sights. Nearly everything novel catches its eyes. The light on a leaf outside the window, the splash of red on its mother's dress, the shadow on the ceiling, the sparkling of light on Grandpa's glasses, they all evoke wonder, rapt, awe, attention. But then for most of us, is it not true, as we grow older, that sense of wonder diminishes and becomes at best peripheral to the business of everyday life? It's one of the lost treasures of childhood, as G.K. Chesterton put it. We have hands that fashion and heads that know, but our hearts we lost how long ago? Stephen Hawking, the English physicist dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, notices it also. He writes, except for children who don't know enough not to ask the important questions, few of us spend much time wondering why nature is the way it is, or where the cosmos came from, or whether it was always here, or if time will one day flow backward. There are children, and I've met some of them, who wonder at what a black hole looks like, and what is the smallest piece of matter, and why we remember the past and not the future. But in our society, it's customary for parents and teachers to answer most of these questions with a shrug. If this is the case, if we do tend to learn the sense of wonder and awe at life that is so much a part of the child's way of seeing things, I wonder why that's so. What is it about us in our culture that has left us where we are, so devoid of this? I think the word itself may provide us with a clue. Wonder means awe and reverence before the uncanny and mysterious that we can neither comprehend or control. Wonder means, therefore, The willingness to trust ourselves to realities, to live with them, even though they speak to us of our ignorance and vulnerability and creatureliness. Or to put it another way, we cease to wonder in order to make life seem more comfortable and tame and safe and familiar. Anxious creatures that we are, we become uneasy with mysteries, with unanswered questions. And so we reduce all the imponderables as quickly as we can to mere problems we can solve. We feel at home with simple explanations and concrete answers. And so I think the mystery of love and marriage, the wonder of the stream of generations, we reduce to recreation and biology. And the mystery of child growth and maturation is reduced to the psychologies of Spock and Gnat. And the mystery of history is reduced to econometrics or political polls. Even though anybody with eyes can see that they predict or guarantee nothing, we feel more comfortable when we have these at hand. And even as the fundamentalisms of scientism and secularism seek to reduce life to simple explanations, even so the fundamentalism of religions seek to tame and domesticate the eternal mystery by reducing him to pat dogmas and rigidities. All fundamentalisms, whether secular or religious, are grounded in our anxiety and our refusal to trust ourselves to the great mysteries of life. They are a flight into security. Economist E.F. Schumacher liked to tell this story. One day he said a philosopher went out walking in the woods and came face to face with a figure in a radiant beam of light, none other than God himself. As he'd spent a lifetime pondering and understanding God's existence, the philosopher was not particularly awed. "You are the Lord, I presume?" "Yes," said God, "I am." "Well then, my Lord, I wonder if you'd be good enough to answer a few simple questions that I have left over." "Certainly, my son. Is it true, Almighty, that what is for us 1,000,000 years here on earth is for you nothing but the merest moment?" "Yes, my son, quite true." "And is it also true," the philosopher went on, "that $1,000,000 here on earth is for you nothing but a paltry penny?" "Also quite true." The philosopher paused for a moment and said, "Then I wonder if it would be possible for you, if it is not too much trouble, to give me one of your pennies." "Why, certainly, my son," said God. "I'll be back in just a moment." Now, I'm not denying for a moment the great gifts generated by man's increasing mastery of his world, all the way from modern medicine to Mercedes and motion pictures, all of which we ought to be grateful for. But the Promethean emphasis on mastery in modern culture has come at a great cost. It has come in the illusion that somehow life and world can be totally at our disposal to shape and secure as we see fit. And we become so driven by the need for mastery that we lose all capacity for mystery, for wonder and trust before God and his world. We cease to be sensitive and reverent before the unknown and the unknowable. No less than Pulitzer Prize-winning Harvard psychologist John Mack puts it this way: "By and large, we in the West have rejected the language and experience of the sacred, the divine. Our psychology is predominantly a psychology of mechanisms, parts, and linear relationships. We've grown suspicious and afraid of experiences, no matter how powerful, that cannot be quantified. And we distrust the language of reverence, of the Spirit." So the secular man looks at the declarations of the Christian faith, our deepest convictions, and says, incomprehensible, as if we did not know that. They are, in a sense, incomprehensible wonders, but only as we in wonder trust ourselves to them do we live. There are three at least I'd like to pick up on this morning that we need to retain and regain our sense of awe and wonder and reverence and mystery, or the fallout for both our society and ourselves will be disastrous. Let me begin with stars. I'm really talking about that world out there, that large, beautiful, incredible world. If you look at the stars through the eyes of the scientist, what do you see? Matter, stuff, energy. But unless we look and see more than the scientist can see, unless we look and see a creation and gift of God for which we are responsible, sooner or later we will abuse that world and destroy it and ourselves in the bargain. It is interesting that some scientists are beginning to look differently at that very world and are seeing it less as a machine to be manipulated or a puzzle to be solved, but rather as an incomprehensible mystery. Curtly Mather, geologist at Harvard, was giving a lecture on the expanding universe, and in it he pointed out that there are galaxies out there greater than our own Milky Way that are speeding away from us faster than the speed of light. And this means we're actually losing them. They are falling off the edge of the universe, so to speak. And he points out that this is literally a mind-boggling reality. In the question and answer period, one woman who seemed very upset at this information asked anxiously, "Dr. Mather, what are we going to do about those galaxies?" And Dr. Mather replied very quietly, "Madam, we're just going to let them go." I confess that from time to time I find a certain transcendence of my own petty worries and concerns, my anxieties, not by trying to control everything within the realm of my existence, but by going for moments under God's starry universe where I'm able to let myself go in the grandeur and beauty and mystery that is His world. Awe and wonder, trusting ourselves to the mystery of it all, can be a liberating experience. Stars and then stories. Stories in the sense that our lives, we believe, have meaning even when it is not apparent to us on a given day that there is any meaning. The reality that God does work for good in and through our days, even though on many days we can't begin to comprehend how that's possible. The mystery that the old faith stands in awe of as much as anything else is the mystery of history. We certainly aren't in control of events. Nothing could be more obvious. When you stop and think of all that has happened in the last 5 years in the world, how totally unpredictable it all was, how relatively helpless were the powers before it all, one can only draw back in awe and amazement. Because in the long sweep of things, there does seem to be meaning and purpose at work. And no less in our own stories as in the larger picture. We cannot command or control, let alone explain. It is frightening. And so we reach out for some way to grab on, even if it's nothing more nor less than the astrology charts of a morning's newspaper. But ultimately, it remains a mystery over which we have only marginal control and to which we must trust ourselves in hope and confidence, because if we don't, then life begins to slip away and lose all future, and we sink into depression and despair. I love the story of the old Hasidic rabbi who would cross the village square of the Russian peasant village each morning on his way to synagogue to pray. And one morning, a large Cossack soldier who happened to be in a vile mood confronted him and said, "Hey, Reb, where are you going?" "I don't know," said the old rabbi. And this infuriated the Cossack. "What do you mean you don't know? Every morning for 25 years you cross the village square and go to the synagogue to pray. Don't fool with me. Who do you think you are telling me you don't know?" Grabbed the old rabbi by the coat, dragged him off to jail. Just as he was about to push him into the cell, the rabbi turned to him and said, "You see, I didn't know." A surgeon out in New York City writes, "When I was an atheist, I took the very understandable and rational view that it was more difficult and courageous to live without the support of some imagined God than with it. Fortunately, life's experience has changed this in me. Many atheists, of course, are like the man from Missouri. They will not believe until they've been shown. But the true wonder I have discovered is that we seem to be sustained at every moment of life by a power and a purpose quite beyond our comprehension." He goes on to say, "There's a moving story of a man suffering from a malignant tumor of the pelvis. who was miraculously cured after praying at Lourdes, and I've examined the case history, and it is convincing. But what is most interesting to me is that the man remained at Lourdes then for many, many years, and later in life was grievously injured. And when he was urged to pray once more, he said, "No, I have had my turn. I have lived many years, and as I look back, I see the hand of God in it all, and it's enough." Then the surgeon says, "But we're really all in this position. Sooner or later, we all have our turn, and we must trust that the hand of God is in our lives as well." Wonder at our story. Trust in our story. "You shall go out in joy and be led back in peace," an old prophet cries to a people who can see no way ahead. Our stars, our stories, and then, if you will, ourselves. The greatest wonder of all is you and me. There's an incredible paradox about human life. There's not a shred of evidence out there for the worth of any single individual, for the preciousness of any single life. Not a shred of evidence. Think of it. There's not a smidgen of scientific proof that the little child is worth any more than a galaxy or a gene. Indeed, there's a biologist at Harvard University who says that genes are far more valuable and determinative of the future than you are. And you're just really a pawn at the disposal of your gene pool. And there is a lot of human experience, is there not, that seems to mock this very idea that the individual, even down to the little child, has any ultimate value. I mean, think of Rwanda and think of Bosnia. And yet, even though this is quite true, no human society nor solitary soul can survive and thrive unless this mystery is trusted and embraced. This incomprehensible mystery that Jesus announced and that the apostle sings about, the mystery that every last one of us is loved deeply and infinitely by God, that He really does care for each one. You see, unless we trust that, as incomprehensible as it may seem, unless we trust that every human life is sacred, unless there is reverence for the very least among us, society as we have enjoyed it will begin to shred, and the individual will begin to lose his hold on life. Unless I can trust that I am valued beyond the changing circumstances and the fleeting relationships of life, sooner or later I begin to die at the very core of my being. I find it interesting that no less than Sir John Eccles, Nobel laureate in physiology and pioneer in brain research, can say, "Scientists have gone too far in breaking down man's belief in his individual spiritual greatness, and in giving him the impression that he is merely an insignificant animal who has arisen by chance and necessity on an insignificant planet lost in the great cosmic immensity. One cannot live on that basis. I myself am a practicing Christian, and I believe in the world of God." And I would only add that if science has been giving that impression, then the society I see out there seems to have been living that impression, that the individual is worth really nothing but the cost of a bullet or a machete. A man had worked in a firm for 25 years and made a bit of a name for himself, and his competency, his colleagues looked upon him as successful, and the chances of advancement still seemed very good. Finally, his time had come, or so he thought, but then one of those strange turns of destiny in the corporate world, his firm was sold and the upper management was changed, and then as a result he found himself not only without advancement but without employment, and it was a devastating blow. When he went home on the day he learned, he felt as though he'd fallen into a bottomless pit of bitterness and despair. He was greeted by his 12-year-old son. "Dad," the boy said, "a bird fell down the drain pipe." "Well, let's see if we can get it out," he replied rather automatically, and then in his own words, "The drain pipe came down the side of the house and ran directly into the sewer. I looked at it for a moment and then sent the boy to the garage for a screwdriver and a pair of pliers. When he returned, the two of us began peeling away the aluminum, and within minutes we had an opening. was packed with grass. The birds must have been building a nest at the top, I said, hurriedly pulling out the grass. If water is in there, the bird may have drowned, I said gently, trying to prepare my son. I pulled out the last handful of grass, and the sparrow, freed from its death cell, came out behind my hand and flew away. And immediately another one followed, and it too flew safely away. "We saved them, Dad, we saved them," my son cried and turned to run and tell his mother. I smiled after him and then began bending the metal back into place. I was still dwelling on my problems when suddenly I stopped cold. Words I had learned long ago as a child came out of nowhere with incredible impact. "Fear not, are you not worth more than sparrows?" And it didn't alter the landscape of life one bit, but the sadness began to lift a little, and courage took hold again, and a strange kind of joy. That's the wonder, the incredible wonder that the Apostle Paul is singing about. The wonder not of the stars or of our story even so much as the wonder of our very selves, our lives as precious to God and never abandoned by Him. And how are you going to stay alive to this in a flat sort of world which seems not to care? I call my words today, "I Wonder as I Wander," not just because it's the title of a well-known song, but because I think that's the way it is. So here we've come full circle. We're right back at the beginning. Have you ever tried to take a 2-year-old for a straight-ahead, purposeful walk? It cannot be done. Take my word for it. Children have an entirely different agenda. For a 2-year-old, there is no sense of accomplishment with leaving point A in order to arrive at point B. The only reason for venturing outdoors at all is the prospect of wandering and bumping into tulips and bumblebees and stars, and every stone deserves investigation, and every mud puddle beckons, and every creepy crawly must be scrutinized with care. Maybe we've lost our wonder and trust because we've lost the habit of wandering. We're always going straight to the goal, to the desk, to the party, to the task, to the project, marching our way through a schedule of activity that leaves us really no time to stare wide-eyed like the little one. Maybe we would wonder more if we wandered a little more with them. Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God, how unscrutable His ways. From Him and through Him and in Him are all things. To Him be glory forever. Amen.